me just go back and read a part of that verse one more time. That verse, by the way, Ephesians chapter 4. It says, according to the proper working of each individual part. Every part has to function properly. Now, what I was talking about as we ended last week was the fact that one of the dangers of this new clerical caste, priestly class that we have allowed to come into existence in the Christian church means that too many people become spectators in the church. So they're not functioning at all. Well, if they're not functioning, then it's like if my hand doesn't function, you're going to notice that right off the bat. All the rest of my body can function perfectly, but if I have any part of my body that doesn't function properly, it's going to
be very noticeable.
It's going to be very noticeable. Well, let me tell you something. That is very noticeable to the world.
Yes.
That within the body of Christ,
how crippled we are.
We are dysfunctional in so many places. So the danger becomes that some parts of the body are working while others atrophy. It's amazing how fast atrophy can happen too. Many of you who know me know about the accident that I had when Allison and I lived as missionaries in Central America, and I was hit by a truck. So I was laid up I was on foot and I was hit by a speeding truck. And for some period of time, I couldn't do anything. I went from being bedridden on a stretcher to being bedridden to being in a wheelchair to being in a walker to being on crutches. And it was incredible that having been in bed for not terribly long, when I got up and tried to take my first step, it was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't walk. Muscles that are unused, parts of the body that are unused, atrophy.
Right.
And they don't function properly until they get going again. Well, that's what's happening in the body of Christ. Because it says, and I'll probably say this in other places, I probably have said it, because Paul wrote it to the Corinthians. He said that the Spirit of God works through each one individually as He wills. And he compares the body of Christ to a human body. It's all got to function properly. If it doesn't, that's what Jesus said, then, it won't, or Paul wrote to the Ephesians, it won't build up the body into love, right? So, how does this come to be? Well, it's man's natural tendency to want to be in charge, to want to be elevated. Quite the opposite of what John the Baptist said. We have a desire. You know what that's called? Say that word, pride.
Stinking pride.
Stinking pride, or as our dear elder brother Arthur Birch says, damnable pride. And he's quite right.
It'll destroy you.
I just want to relate this. Years ago, I had a friend who was the editor of a Christian magazine, a monthly publication that's very well known. And he had written an article, a very well-written and very appropriate article about pride behind the pulpit was kind of the title. And he was speaking out against the fact that we have so elevated and made superstars, spiritual superstars out of so many preachers that it has been, trust me, to the detriment of the church.
Yes.
So this entire cover story was about that. But interestingly, the back cover of that magazine that particular month had been sold to a very well-known ministry.
Yeah.
And that back cover had 9 photographs of the pastor. His name mentioned, I think, 10 times. And not one mention of Jesus Christ. I just found it so interesting. That the cover condemns this, and you go to the back cover, and there it is in all of its, it's not all its glory. So we just have to remember, I can't say this better than Jesus Christ did, so I'll say it the way He did, and I won't. From the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus, it says, seeing the people, He felt compassion for them, because they were distressed and dispirited like sheep without a shepherd. Then He said to His disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into His harvest. Now He's talking, the context of that is shepherds, the pastors, right? The King James doesn't say workers, I think it says laborers.
No, I think that's right.
Yeah. So the shepherds are to be workers, laborers. He has the management side, well covered. Okay? It's not about praying in CEOs, managing directors, and managers. God's not looking for people to run the church.
He's not looking for a business.
No.
No.
No, He's looking for workers, for laborers. Let Him manage. Let Him think. Otherwise, you're going to lean on your own understanding, which, of course, it says in Proverbs 3 not to do, because we get in trouble when we do that.
He is Lord. He has risen from the dead, and He is Lord. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. He's my Lord. He's my Lord. He has risen from the dead, and He's my Lord.